welcome to Hiccups and Hot Flashes, where every hiccup is a hidden gift and every hot flash a power move. We're your hosts. I'm Danny, an ICF somatic and embodiment coach.
I'm Dory, a trauma-informed midlife resiliency coach.
And I'm Kim, a self-sovereignty coach.
We're three coaches, two moms, and one single gal who all love human design and have real conversations about navigating transitions with awareness, resilience, fresh perspectives, and a mission to give voice to the voiceless. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Hiccups and Hot Flashes. And today we are going to be talking about values. But first, let's check in with my co-hosts and see how you both are arriving. How's it going?
Good.
Yeah.
That
Lovely.
sounded so convincing.
Yeah. Tell me how you really feel.
Oh, no. I've had such a busy week. We are renovating our yard and oh my goodness, I just feel like I have what is it called? Decision fatigue.
Oh, that's
That's
real.
kind of where I'm at.
We need an episode on that.
Yeah.
Mm, cool. I'm good. Had a nice few days off, a month off, but feeling excellent. So I'm good. Yeah.
Love it. Okay, well, let's dive in. Values. And my first question to you is, what do you both think of when you hear the word values?
Dory.
So when I think about values, I think about things that are important to me, things that I um, love, trust, things that I value, characteristics about myself that I want to develop. I think about that. But my values are anchored into what I call my principles. And my principles are unchanging. That is like the foundation of Dory. And it's what makes me me and what I've decided consciously, what I'm all about. And then my values support how I navigate in life. So, um, education, relationships, communication, and my values will change here and there. Anyways, so those are the things that I think about when I think about values.
So I look at value as self-worth and the worth of others, um, self-perception, and our interaction with other people. So it is this intrinsic value of being, of who you are, and belief that your inherent value as a person doesn't really depend on your achievements or your situation, your circumstances, because it's who you are. And when you're living by your values, if you can identify it and you're living true to it, that's being authentic. Um, and that kind of is a personal development of self.
I love that there is this broad perspective of values. And so here today,
Well, what do you think?
what do I think?
Yeah.
I think that values, again, are that foundation that we live by. And those
Mm.
values are they're intrinsic. They come from inside, internally versus externally.
Mhm.
And that's why I love this topic so much because learning that and discovering my values is something that has, like you said, Dory, has created this foundation for me to navigate my life. And also, to your point, Kim, has also, I think when we live by our values, we start to get that sense of worth, that sense of value, because we're in alignment with what we believe and our actions are following that. And so it just kind of takes the static out of things.
Mm.
And really, what I've adopted, I'll just share this real quick, is a lot of times we get to the beginning of the year and everybody's on this like goal setting. Um, re- I'm not going to do this thing for myself anymore. And then come, a couple of months down the road, we're in this shame cycle because we weren't able to sustain that.
Hmm.
So what I've done instead of doing like my goals, or why am I, it's an R word, why am I not getting it? The beginning of the year when you decide you're not gonna
Resolution?
resolutions. Yeah, I don't even
Okay.
I didn't put it out of my mind. Instead of resolutions, I reevaluate my goals or
Mm,
my values. And then I filter those into, okay, my goals from there. And that seemed to give me a much better sustainable foundation moving forward because things are going to happen, right? Hiccups are going
mm-hmm,
to happen. And
mm-hmm.
they are an anchor for me to come back to when things get hard. So yeah, that's what I think. What are your true core values? And these are not morals, but they are your true core values, those fundamental beliefs that guide behavior, decisions, and interaction. They can be, I've heard people say they're core drivers, energetic truths, personal compass. They all kind of boil down to basically the same thing. And you can call them whatever you want that feels good for you. But this concept of establishing your values, I feel like is one of the most important underpinnings.
Well, can I ask you a question real quick? Because you said they're not morals.
Right.
So, what is a moral versus a value?
I would say morals are more, they're like they attach to your values. So if I have a value of communication and I'm not valuing that or I'm not stepping up to that, like that doesn't, it doesn't affect us morally. Like we're not a bad person
Mm-hmm.
because we don't share the same values with other people, more or less, in that respect. Like there shouldn't be any judgment or criticism or self-judgment around what our true core values are if they don't correspond to, say, what our familial values are or our cultural values are. And I think people take that as if I don't share the values of the people and institutions and things around me, then there's something wrong with me intrinsically. And that's kind of where I come from as far as that piece goes. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted some context there. Okay, cool.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So I want to bring that back a little bit because Dory, you mentioned like my values can change.
Hmm.
So I'm
Or
curious.
reprioritized. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that. So can you give an instance, like how have your values changed over the years, or how have you reprioritized them and why?
Hmm. Well, let's say, like, so I'm a mom of six. And so family is a huge value for me. But there have been times when um, that, self-development, in order to be able to show up for my family, self-development needed to be prioritized. And so, but there were other times, like when I had little babies, the baby had to be prioritized, or there was a sick child, or we had kind of a big thing going on. The family needed to be prioritized, and so it was like that's what I mean by my values can be reprioritized. And that's a very mild, simple example, but they're like prioritizing myself, kind of going back to what Kim was saying as far as self-worth, right? That self-worth is going to, in my mind, self-worth and developing that self-worth helps you be more present and um, focused on others. So if I'm not taking care of myself, then I need to, or then I'm not going to be able to be present with other people that I have made commitments to in life. So, anyways, kind of a wordy, random, rambly answer, but I don't know. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Actually, yeah, I would say to add on to that is that core values, they reflect your priorities with
Hmm.
family, friends, relationships, and they're supposed to change, you know, because if you say these are my values at 10 years old, are you really going to be sticking to those values at 15 or 20? No. If you say at 25, these are my values, because in that moment, in that life, in that phase that you're going through, this is what, if you do have values and you're holding on to it, that's who you are. And as you are learning and experiencing life and growing, they're going to change. You may be like, you know what? Um, I value something a little bit more. I have different priorities. I now have a family. I now have this job. I now realize I have been putting everyone else ahead of me. I need to reprioritize myself. I actually have a client who, um, and it's so crazy to me. This person knowing that they should put themselves first does not. And it's so hard for this person to do that. I'm trying to be very, non-specific.
General.
Yeah. Um, and I could see that it was very hard for them. And it's just like, wow, the idea of putting yourself first, to prioritizing yourself and understanding what your values are to live that life, how important it is. And a lot of people kind of fail or falter in that respect.
Yeah, and if I can just add to what you just said there, and Danny, maybe you might get to this in a little bit, but I want something you said just made me think about this, which was um, sometimes that is an indicator, like when I realize that my values are not really reflecting who I want to be, then I realize I am actually valuing something else. And it takes some serious self-confrontation. It takes some uh, real processing to sit with it. Is this really the direction I'm wanting to go in? Is really what I'm all about right now? And then there have been times like what you were talking, this example, Kim, really hit home with me because I'm like, oh, so many times I have been in that space. And I realize that I am being a martyr at times, or I am, um, what is it? People pleasing, right? And so then I realize I'm valuing something else, and it's not my health. It's not my mental, emotional, physical health that I'm prioritizing. And then, getting back to home, getting back to center means reprioritizing those values and getting clear on me, which also, um, I mean, I don't know. There's just something to be said when values can be like a symptom. What is it? Like a monitor thing, like a beacon, like that says, oh, you got this thing going on because you're valuing something that isn't really important to you, and yet it is. Why? And usually for me, it has to do with I can tell I'm in survival mode when I go into those spaces, which means that my health is going to start declining really fast.
Even more specifically, how do you sense that? How do you know that you're in that space? You're
Mm.
not being true to that value, you're not honoring it as much.
Oh, it all starts with my gut and my heart. So it's almost like my heart feels like it's like clenching down. If my heart could have fists, it feels tight. And my stomach gets tight as well. There's like this contracting constantly. And um, And when I'm in the mode of go, 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 I'm only looking at the end result, and I'm not being mindful about how I'm getting to that end result. I can very easily, if I have a lot of deadlines um, or I'm thinking about other people's expectations, then it's really easy for me to get into that space of contraction and survivability. At that point, when I do become aware of it, um, I am able to step back, breathe, step back. How do I want this to look? How do I want to end up on the other side of this? That really changes a lot of it too. So,
You repeat the question.
I was just wondering how you know that you're misaligned with that value, that you're not, there's something not right. How do you know that you're not living that value or there's an issue?
Rumination. I think about what I said or what I did and then question why I did it. And it is an internal feeling of why did I do that? I didn't want to do that. Okay, and then I try to figure out, did I do that for that person so that they'll like me, or so that I'll sound a certain way, or so that they would not, you know, see me a certain way, maybe the expert because I'm not an expert, whatever it is. Um, I just it's mental and it's physical. So the mental rumination, the constant thoughts, not necessarily doubting, but just questioning why I did it, trying to work it out. Um, and physical, I would probably say just an overall sense of unease throughout my body. Like, you
Hmm.
know what, that's not what you're not following your values. You're not living in this integrity and um or being authentic. So that's kind of what I think about.
One other thing I would add is my behavior becomes controlling. I start trying to control everything that's going on out here instead of being able to regulate what's going on in here. And that's usually preceded by the clenchy gut, heart, and then when I start noticing that people are tiptoeing around me, I'm like, I think something's off. Mama needs to go back to bed.
Yeah, start over. That brings me to an important point about core values. Again, just to reiterate, I call them true values and should values. And if I'm in a true value state, then I feel ease and I feel that lightness, that kind of comfort sensation, like ah. And then if I'm following something that's a should value, like, oh, I should value this, or I should, I I can tell right now in my own body, I feel like, ugh, I just feel this resistance.
Hmm.
And I almost want to dig my heels in and be like, watch me not do that thing. Kind of
Mhm.
deal. Like, and even if, and no one has to say anything, it's that pressure that I feel. And it is pressure. Like, I feel it in my chest and my shoulders. And I just feel this like huge weight on me. And inside, I start to brew. Like,
Hmm.
how do I find my way out of this? Because this doesn't belong to me.
Hmm.
And and then that also segues into I can have values that I state and I can have values that I live.
Well, super interesting as you were talking about that. I know I've mentioned it on here before, but when we start living someone else's value system, those are called secondary values,
Yep.
a secondary value system. And when you were talking about like you start to brew inside, to me, I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like those are the seeds of resentment. And why, and which is, to me, that is an indicator that there is a boundary issue here. My body is saying, this is not what we're doing. We're starting to self-betray. This is not okay. Um, and if it goes unchecked, then it very easily can turn to resentment. But I really appreciated that you were saying, like, how can I get out of here? Because that's essentially what it is. Like, how do I get out of this space of self-betrayal and start getting back into alignment with who I am? And yet, if I value my relationships, how do I become assertive without, you know, severing a relationship, and that takes people skills, right? And practice and a lot of I'm sorry's sometimes.
Yeah.
And empathy.
Yeah.
You got to have
Oh, yeah.
empathy. Yeah.
Well, and a lot of self-evaluation
Hmm.
because I often find it, I just be true here. Sometimes when I get to that place and I haven't checked myself, it's everybody else. Right? It's not me. It's everybody else. And then
All
that,
y'all have a problem.
oh
I don't know
y'all,
what the
yeah,
deal is.
exactly.
Everybody has a
Love
problem
that
with you.
song.
Let's see why. Common
Yeah.
denominator.
we all get
Everybody in the world is so annoying today. I don't know
yeah,
what the problem is.
it's so true. It's so true. And so it kind of makes me feel like, okay, so what are the self-discovery methods that we use
Mm,
to determine where we're at with that and what's going on? Because like it can just feel so confusing and overwhelming to be in that space, and then you're taking action based on something that is not a value for you, right? So like just creating this big muddy mess
absolutely.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So are there, I think you needed to say something, Tori. What's on your
Oh,
mind?
you started to ask the question. I think you said what? Ask the question again.
Yeah. So what self-discovery methods
Mm.
do you use around your values to determine where you're at, where you need to go?
So define self-discovery methods. Is that
Um,
discovering where we're at?
yeah, I mean, any kind of, I mean, there could be self-regulating practices.
Mm.
Obviously, you need to get there. But then beyond those,
Hmm.
where do you go in those moments?
I think so for me, I'm pretty self-aware. I know that about myself. So I feel like, and I just always have been. So, and I know not everybody is just based on conversations that I've had with people. So, but for me, because I know myself, I know that I'm typically very relaxed. I'm typically, um, things don't typically get under my skin. I don't get bothered by a lot. I can listen to someone and go, that's interesting. I haven't, so I know that's like my baseline. And so when I start feeling like I need to manage other people, something is going on with me. So the self-discovery methods that I use there, like self-confrontation, absolutely. Differentiation, I know I've covered it on here before, but according to Dr. Schnarch, when you talk about emotional differentiation, um, it is the ability to maintain your sense of self when you're with other people, especially the people that you're closest to, because it's so easy to want to adopt their value systems in order to keep the peace, but then you start self-betraying and blah, blah, blah. So that's the first thing. The second one, can I self-soothe my own anxieties? Can I control my own reactivity? And do I feel like I can lean into discomfort for growth? Like if I can check off all four of those things, then I know I'm good. If I can't, then I go searching for um the misalignment piece. So it's kind of a process of what is that? Elimination.
What about you, Kim?
I have to agree with the emotional differentiation point. Um, I am pretty balanced and calm and have been working on maintaining um, this self-awareness. And what I found is that, yeah, mentally, got it. I'm good. I'm aware. I know certain things. But what I have kind of missed or don't always catch is the emotional part, is the emotions that are brought on from other people that I amplify, that I kind of take on, assuming it's mine, my energy, my emotions. And then even so, I will question, like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I irritated? I still question in what you call it, self-confrontation. I still do that, not in a what's wrong with you kind of way. Just let me figure out what it is that I'm feeling and understand why. And sometimes I can't figure it out because it's not mine. And there's no reason for it to, kind of have come about. But it is that emotional differentiation, which I'm now working through to make sure that I know where my balance state is. I know where my uh, optimal, exalted, whatever, expression is, how I am when I'm entering a room or entering into this space with another person and trying to recognize where where there's a change, where I need to have my boundaries. So that's kind of what I do, my process. It's very in the moment. And if And it's actually very in the moment right now, especially knowing that I have to keep track of my emotions and what I'm feeling and what I'm getting from other people. And then how I can use that because maybe, like for me, I'm maybe feeling something or receiving something because I have a message. Then I have to figure it out what it means for myself or for them.
Mm.
But that's kind of where I am and what I go through. Still a work in progress.
Are we all?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wanted to just like the self-confronting piece. An example of that would be, and I thought about this when Kim was talking. Um, like we kind of joked about everyone's really annoying. What's wrong with everyone else? A lot for me, a lot of times, um, there is some feedback coming from my external world that will say, something's not right in this environment, you know, and self-confrontation would look like, am I being difficult to work with right now? Right? That's self-confronting. Is there, am I not communicating what was my part in this experience? You're not accepting blame, but you're simply saying, if I do want a solution to this, if I want to get through this in a way that is beneficial to both of us, I need to do my part in it. And what is my part? And sometimes we have to look back and see, well, how am I not showing up? You know, so that's where the self confrontation comes in.
And I'm hearing from both of you ladies that it's establishing and knowing your baseline is really important to know where you are in kind of that space and how to get back. And so what I'm thinking is, I guess my question to you is, is what helps you identify what your true values are over time? Is there something specific? Do you have a practice?
There is, well, I don't have a practice. Um, I can't remember. Like it's there's like this value, I don't even remember what it's called, valuation. It's this whole way of ranking your values and identifying them and then saying, okay, there maybe there's five, and you just say the five, and then go like, let's say, um, I'm just going to pick two. I say, okay, I value integrity and fun, and then you would ask, which one do you value more, integrity or fun? Integrity. Okay, so integrity is one, and then let's say another one on the list is I value honesty. Okay, fun or honesty? Honesty. Okay, so now honesty is number two. So there is that valuation that kind of goes along with it. Um, but like I know what I value. Um, and I kind of make sure that I live by that. So integrity, courage, authenticity, and empowerment, just the probably the top ones in no particular order. Well, I take that back. Integrity is usually number one. Doing things regardless of who's looking. It's not for likes, clicks, or trends. I hate that so much. Um, but it's just who you are. It's doing the right thing, even when if no one's listening or looking, or both. But
Mm,
I do honor that, and I would say courage because I've done a lot of stuff, and I'm just like, why am I doing this? Because I feel like I need to do it. And I say it's feel the fear and do it anyway. That's for me. Everyone else could be different. They may see courage differently, but this is just how I live. So I I decide what I value based on what's going on in my life and what I want to accomplish or challenge myself or achieve and things like that, what I'm working towards.
I'm also curious, this has come up for me when I do this with clients and even myself, is that say creativity comes up on the list. Well, what is that definition of creativity for you?
Hmm.
That matters. To define and explore a little bit about what our values are, because like you'd mentioned, values are seasonal, they're developmental, they can change or be reprioritized over time. And so I've noticed that definition, in order to connect to the value in a personal way, is really important.
It has to be
It,
personal. I mean, because otherwise, why do you have it? Who are you following? Like, oh, hey, they have these values, and I'm going to live by their values. If that doesn't align with how you're living your life, you can say you aspire to be that way if it's true. But if it's not personal,
and right, and I think sometimes looking outside, we're like, oh, I want that. I want to feel like that. I want to have, there's something that your desire to have or be connected to. And is it really their value, or is it what you perceive that they're receiving?
hmm,
That can
yeah,
be, that can be a big deal.
it's that self-perception, and then it's no longer intrinsic. It's just external. It's all about the other.
Yeah. Have you ever had a situation where you've had two values and there's a little tension between them? They're competing. And how do you approach that?
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I- okay, so
What just
I'm
came up? I'm so
yeah.
curious.
no, I mean, there's probably a story behind it, but just I was just thinking that, when you want to say something to someone and you're like, I need them to know how they're acting or what they're doing or behaving or how it looks. And then you're going, it's none of my business, or um it's kind of stepping beyond where I know like my boundaries are or something like that. You just have um that internal struggle of should I not? You know, I
Hmm.
there are probably lots of examples of this, but just the idea, the concept of that struggle of wanting to do something, but then falling back, not because you have this fear, or you're questioning yourself, but if the tables were reversed, you know, would
Well,
you want that?
yeah, I hear you. Like that, that tension could be like safety, right? Which could create, if you value safety, but you are realizing that that safety is, there could be some over functioning
Hmm.
in on your part to create safety for a group experience. So now you're managing the group, and I shouldn't say you. I've seen myself do this before,
Yeah.
where I try to manage the group, and really what I'm trying to do is just regulate, which means I may need to either establish a boundary in that, like, hey, this conversation, this comment, not okay, not for this space, or get up and leave, right? That's some self-regulation. Um, but my desire for safety may override, and and it's like, which one do I focus on first? People's, like, their, do I value freedom in this, or do I value safety in
Hmm.
this? Which one? And so I can see there being tension. Like, that's kind of what I heard you referring to, but you could have been talking about something totally different.
I mean, it all kind of makes sense and works. But I was just thinking of something, no one in particular. So anyone
Hmm.
listening, this is not about anyone that I know. I was just, for example, if someone says, "Oh, I value honesty and friendship," but then one of their friends, their partner is cheating, and you're like, "Honesty, I need to tell my friend, it's my girl, this and that." Um, it's friendship, but then are you thinking about your ability or your need for honesty? and you're not thinking about the friend, does that friend really want it? And then are you prepared for the consequences of being so honest and so open that you're just like, but I just need to tell you, I just need to say it because this is what I know. And then the friend could just be like, I didn't need to know that. Or why are you telling me? Why are you sound so excited? Or I mean, whatever it is it for you or for the other person? And so your values and what you feel like you have to get out is really about yourself and not the other person. So you are kind of have this internal struggle.
Not everybody does share the same values. And even though we may value those things and we may be anchored in those, we can't really push those on anybody else either. Like
Hmm.
we can state and say these are my values and this is how it shows up for me and this is how I choose to live it, right? Then maybe boundaries can come in, but at no
Mhm.
point. And it can be hard because like in the instance of children, that can be
Oh,
really challenging to keep your values, especially while they're little, because we're they're sort of borrowing ours to some.
yes.
They're borrowing ours and they're playing with them and they're seeing if they really do value those like we do. And then, I think that's that like teenage space for them to go bump up against them and say, actually, I'm going to challenge this one or I accept this one. I think that's a really big time season in life for that to occur.
So interesting because I mean I agree. And but interesting in that you were talking earlier about value or Kim brought up values are personal. Like this should be very personal. What I find and is that some people tend to um they take their values so personally that or they're oh my gosh, how what am I trying to say here?
It blinds them to other people.
Right. Well, to the point where it's like this value is my identity. And if you don't accept this value that I'm trying to project onto you, then you're rejecting me, and like that's where that differentiation piece and that self-confrontation, I believe, really is important because a value is just a value and you're choosing to engage with
Mhm.
life and with people in alignment with that value, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's your identity,
Mhm.
And so it's important to differentiate the two. So going back to, children, or anyone for that matter, um, there is the adopting of value systems. And like, I'm going to try this one on for size, see how it fits. And maybe I want to keep it. Maybe I don't. Maybe I want to adjust it a little bit, and um uh sorry. So sorry, I got distracted.
Keep it going.
So
Was that me? Sorry.
yeah.
Sorry.
But my point is that yeah, anyways, when we take it personal, like when we take our value, the other people not accepting our values the way that we see them, especially if we're like when we are projecting our values onto someone else, like at least for me, when I'm trying to project my values onto someone else, it can feel like a rejection of me when they don't accept it. And at that point, again, like check yourself at the door and why? What does this have? What does them not accepting that value have anything to do with me at the time? It just kind of goes back to letting people be themselves and just having that self-discovery piece in finding their value systems. And I think it's a lifetime work. We go through these experiences that change us, and then our values will change, or even the definition, like maybe love at the age of 10. Well, I know this is going to be the case. Love at the age of 10 is going to be different than the definition of love at the age of 40.
Mhm.
At 10, I didn't have kids. I wasn't married. I didn't have relationships. At 40, I did. my definition of love is completely different, but it's mine and mine alone. And I can respect that with other people too.
Is there a way that, if you'd like to share a specific value, is there a specific value and a way that you show up for that, that you honor it in your life? And what does that look like?
I would say courage for me,
Mm.
because I've always said, feel the fear and do it anyway. Because if it's like it's something I want to do and it's like, oh my gosh, should I? Should I? Yes. Speaking just for me, yes, I should do it. Whether it works out or not, nothing like, oh, am I going to risk my life? No. But I've done a lot of things that um, doesn't make a lot of sense to some people because they're kind of, for example, I I've quote gotten up and moved cross country, moved back, and some people are like, oh my God, that's so courageous. And I'm just like, really? I mean, okay. It was something I wanted to do, but some of these changes, it was just like, I I'm moving somewhere and I don't know anybody, or I know like two or three people. And it is very unfamiliar. It's not unsettling because I want to do it, but there is that courage factor that I was like, okay, this is part of me. This is part of who I am, my authenticity. I love change. I love experiencing new things. I kind of have to do it, but it doesn't mean that everything is just going to go super smoothly or the way it's going to work out. But I just kind of go through it because I really want to do it. And to an extent, I'm not going to allow that to hold me back. So there is courage. And people can have different definitions of, what courage means to them. But for me, it is feeling the fear and doing it anyway, as long as it doesn't risk my life or anyone else's. So.
And your question was there a specific value?
Yes.
Yeah. Um, for me, I would say transparency
Mm.
is a major one for me. I value it. Like people, that's a gauge for me in relationships. If the person that I'm engaging with can be transparent and they develop transparency within themselves, I know that that's someone that I can work with. Not to say that I can't work with other people, but if they're going to be open and honest up front, then I know, like, okay, I don't need to worry about where I stand with this person, or I don't have to try it. They're not going to, I'm not going to have to play the mental games with them. Like, do I have to read their mind? Which is like, that's way over functioning for me. And I don't like doing that. Um, so transparency, but then also for me on my end, it's important that people know where I'm coming from and that there is no agenda here. I have zero agenda. It is what it is. I say it like I say it. Um, I don't know. So, but also, like, I value, there's a whole cluster in that. Like, this all has to do with communication, right? Because it kind of goes back to I could be honest in my transparency, or do I value honesty, or do I value kindness? Do I value both? And I, that's where kind candor comes in, but also transparency. So allows me to be honest, which I guess is a way of defining honesty, right? But anyways, transparency is my thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. It can be challenging to come up with one.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I love that you said, because sometimes they'll be like for me, self-expression is a thing.
Mm,
But then underneath that is honest self-expression, creative self-expression, so there's kind of nuance
mm-hmm.
to these things. And that's why I feel like it's really important for us to kind of get down to the nitty-gritty a little bit and define what that is for us. And sometimes it will open up other doors that we didn't know were there that we can explore. At least
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what I've seen and what's happened for me.
To go along with that is when you're asking someone to say, what are your values? And they're breaking it down. And they can say anything, but let's just take that self-expression. And let's say self-expression and um, honesty. The question, the reason why it's personal is because what, like you said, what does it mean to you? What does self-expression mean? What does honesty mean to you? Not what just the general definition is, not just what this other person said. What does it mean to you? Because you're going to ideally live by that, follow that. And if someone's value is self-expression or creative self-expression, someone else may look like, oh my gosh, they're just too much, they're too wild and crazy, but they're self-expressing. They're very creative and very colorful, while someone else's self-expression could be just very mild and just being, you know, however they are. I have no idea. Maybe they're more balanced and their creative is I'm just going to write, I'm going to journal, I'm going to, be that author. And they look at someone else and go, for example, this is I will call her out. Not I'm not calling her out. My mother, my mother is she likes colors. So she will paint her nails different colors. She has when she decorates, it's different textures or colors. And I was just like, okay, that's that's too much. That's not me. I love go all out for your self-expression, but the way she expresses herself is not the way I express myself. And our decorations, our designs and things like that are totally different, total opposites. But that's not for me to go, oh, the way you self-express is just terrible. Why would I do that? We're different.
Rude,
And the funny
right?
thing, the funny thing is, I was talking to a friend of mine about it, and her sister, she was like, "Oh yeah, I love that." My mother and my friend's sister have the same, kind of sense of style and expression and colorful, and I'm just like, well, I gotta pass that on because, and I did, and she was like, "See, this is great. I told you." And she's not the only one, but it allows you to expand your definition and idea of what the meaning of self-expression or whatever it is,
hmm
um, beyond your your kind of caged or boxed in definition.
Mm. And on the flip side of that, um, is, well, not necessarily the flip side, but just kind of on the another aspect of this is I feel like when I get really clear on my values, it really helps clarify what my boundaries are going to be.
Mm, 100%.
So, which also allows that space of discovery, right? If I'm, because your boundaries are all about how to, and I don't want to get into necessarily a discussion about boundaries because I know this is about values, but boundaries are about um, you being able to be present with you. It's not about managing other people. It's about how do I be more of myself, which is where that self-discovery can come in. So the more you work on your value system and the more you spend time with it and defining it, and I love the word nuanced in relation to it because it is, the more freedom you have, I believe, to navigate through those values and what they mean for you. And the more you discover and the more openness you feel, that's my experience.
Yeah, actually, the word that came to mind as you were talking, self-acceptance. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And having a good picture of that, a good picture of who we are helps us to see that and to hold it.
hmm
And really just to kind of bring it back, like why do values matter? I think they create clearer choices, stronger boundaries, more integrity, and greater fulfillment.
hmm
And who doesn't want that? Sign me up, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
I do want to acknowledge, it's a good question. Um, I want to acknowledge that if you are not in the practice of being comfortable with you, sitting with your value system might be painful because there can be that awareness of, oh my goodness, I don't think I know who I am. And there's some grieving that gets to happen in that space. And I just want to acknowledge that this is not an easy, it sounds really easy. Oh, what are your values? But when you sit down, you figure out like, but why is this my value? How does this really connect to me? And how does this help me navigate through life in a way that's authentic to me? Sometimes if you if you're new to the work, you start, looking under the rocks and going, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. And I didn't realize I was buying into this idea. Okay, time to do some reconstruction here, and it can be hard. So,
I'm so glad you brought that up.
but it's amazing. Yeah.
It is amazing. There is freedom on the other side of that.
Yes.
And I would encourage anybody who's thinking about it on the edge to take that next
Hmm.
step. Um, and with that, as we start discovering our values, and I found this for myself, is that these can hold me in times of chaos and change and uncertainty.
Yes.
I mean, it's just that little thread, right, that just keeps me in it and keeps me connected to myself. And I'm going to include this in the show notes, but I've actually put together a values discovery PDF. It's called Find Your True North, a Values Discovery Worksheet. And it's very simple and a way to get started. And like I said, I'll put that in the show notes. It's just got some inquiry questions, a list of some common values that people express that they have, and you find your top 5 to 7 core values, and it's just a great place to start to just lean into a little bit, try them on. Is this real? What's this definition? So if you're looking to start that process or dip your toe in it, we'll have that available for you. So just to wrap up, is there anything that you two need to say or want to contribute so that this feels complete conversation?
The thought that I'm having as you were um, talking there was um, having a good support system is important. Like, surround yourself with, if you want to work on your values, find people who live by their values. That's going to be your greatest support, external support system. And then get some good self-care in place if you don't have it, because it's exciting to find the values and it can also rock your world. so so just, self-care, whether it means giving yourself a pedicure, going to lunch with some friends, going to the gym, whatever self-care is for you, that's going to help create that space to hold space for you,
And I
and
just
then surround yourself with people who also know how to hold space for themselves, I think that's what I would say.
I love that point. And I would also like to insert that I've totally forgot. This is
Awesome.
this is what happens. That's a hiccup. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I
Well,
guess
well, while you are thinking, if it comes back to you,
yeah.
I will say, because I say this from experience, not of myself, but of a couple other people. When people start talking about who and how they are and what they expect of themselves, or especially other people, how they're living, and they'll say, okay, well, they want this, they want that, or this is how their life or however it is should turn out or should be. And then when you ask them, okay, so, but are you living that way? And that's when they recognize it's like, oh, I want this from other people, but that's not how I'm living my life. So it's just like, my thing is, figure out what your values are. You don't have to make this long list. You can start with one, You can start with five, eight, however, or three. What are your top three values? And really look at your life and go, am I living by this? Because that's what I found some people realize they weren't, they say, oh, this is what I value. I value this, this, and this. And I can point out each time they weren't living by it. So it just became, these are words as values, but it didn't really have the meaning behind it. So I would suggest the first step maybe with your documents that, yeah, what are your values? Look at your life. And if you are,
Like common themes, do you
yeah,
mean? Okay.
common themes, you know, what's how does it weave through your life? Are you living by it? Um, Meaning, are you interacting with people with the same bit of integrity or, courage or whatever it is, this honesty? Are you being honest to other people because you expect them to be honest with you? And if not, either you need to get on board with that or change that value to something that fits you. So
Hmm.
I really
Which
do.
is okay. It's totally
Absolutely.
okay to do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's living in integrity. That's living in alignment. So,
All right. We do what we do because of who we are.
mhm.
Yep. Awesome.
Yeah, I remembered what I was going to say.
Ye-
Because I need to hear this sometimes that rest and stillness is also an action. It can be a place for you to just integrate. I think sometimes we're always into this action, 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 the next step, the next doing. Sometimes the pause is really beneficial as well. And I would encourage compassion in those places. Because I know for myself, if I take that time, my system panics a little bit, like, wait, you should be doing this. And I kind of need to let that settle a little bit and understand that that is also a nurturing thing.
Mm. Can I speak to that for just a tiny second?
Please.
It goes back to your question that you asked earlier, and I realized I didn't answer it, which was, what's your process? Um, I know for me, I came out of the womb this way. I don't know a time when I wasn't this way. I'm a very deep thinker. I know not everybody is. So for that reason, I do need like I need the stillness, but I also need to create the stillness. And so I go on solo trips once a year. I go away for 4 or 5 days, and that's where I do my value work. So, and it does just everything you said right there, the compassion, the creating a safe space, no judgment zone, all of that, just it's all present. I feel like if you're going to look at your values, you're also going to be like, no, like it's one of those like you're when you pick up one end of the stick, you're going to pick up the other. When you start looking at your values, you're going to find your authentic self. So when that begins to happen, sometimes that requires a lot of self-compassion because there was um, sometimes, I don't want to make this as a blanket statement, but sometimes it's hard to be compassionate about something that other people didn't like seeing in us. And so we were conditioned to believe that this thing that is important to us that we valued is important because it wasn't important to someone else and it was projected onto us that we should ignore this. And yet it's the core of who we are. And so have lots and lots of compassion for yourself in those spaces because these values will be pointing you to your authenticity.
Yeah, lovely. As always, ladies, thank you so much for joining this space. And I just have one final question, or actually, I'll leave it here
Mm.
for our listeners, and that is, what is a value you're claiming for this season of life? And what is one small way you can honor that value in yourself this week?
Mm.
Lots of compassion around that. Um, and if you would like to download that values worksheet, that will be posted below. And I thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. You've been listening to Hiccups and Hot Flashes. We're here for real talk around life's transitions, the messy, the meaningful, and everything in between. If something resonated, be sure to follow the show, leave us a review, and share this episode with someone who's riding their own wave of change. Got a question, comment, or topic you'd love us to explore? Send us an email anytime at hello.hhpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, trust the hiccups, own the hot flashes, and keep showing up for the magic in the middle.